The Camry rolled into the second bay on a Tuesday morning. Owner's name is Julie, Fort Wayne, Indiana. She'd driven over an hour to get a second opinion because the shop she'd been going to for 8 years had just quoted her $1,200 for what they were calling a loss-of-power diagnostic and induction service on her 2013 Camry. 2.5-liter four-cylinder, 143,000 miles, one owner from new. Complaint on the paper was 2 lines. Feels tired, slow off the light. Idles rough at the traffic signal on Coldwater Road. I want to walk through what I did next because it lines up with almost every 15 hacks for old engines video that keeps showing up in your feed. Same 15 items, same promises, same run-like-new thumbnail with somebody's blue-gloved hand and a red arrow. Here's what the top 5 search results won't tell you at the top of the video. What gets missed in every one of those lists is the part where you figure out which of the 15 actually applies to what your engine is doing wrong. A hack that fixes rough idle won't do a thing for sluggish acceleration. A hack for sluggish acceleration is a waste of Saturday if what you actually have is a lean code. And a hack aimed at oil consumption, if it's the wrong one, makes the underlying problem worse. So instead of a flat list of 15 tricks, I'll walk through 6 symptoms, 6 specific things drivers actually feel or see, and grade the hacks per symptom. Some work, some do very little. 2 will make your problem worse and cost you money. I'll flag those 2 directly. Stay through to symptom 4 at about 12 minutes in. That's the 2 hacks the compilation videos push hardest that will actively cost you money on a modern direct injection engine. I'll name them and show the mechanism. If you take one thing from this walkthrough, take those 2. Julie's shop was about to sell her both, $1,200, on a car that didn't need either one. 15 minutes of the wrong hacks on the wrong car is the difference between a $30 Saturday and a $1,000 receipt. Near the end, I show what actually fixed the Camry. $30 in cleaner, 20 minutes of my Tuesday. Julie's Camry, I'll come back to it. Symptoms first. Symptom 1, rough idle, hesitation at stoplights. The car feels like it might stall when you take your foot off the brake, and you find yourself blipping the throttle to keep it steady. This is the most common complaint I hear on cars past the 100,000-mile mark, and it's the one where the 15 hack lists tend to earn their keep. Most of the items you hear about really are aimed at this. Mechanism first, then grade the hacks. At idle, the engine runs on a very narrow air-fuel corridor. Almost no throttle. The ECM holds idle speed against a small target, 650 to 800 revolutions per minute on most passenger cars. Any small drift in the air the engine's actually getting, or the vacuum signal the ECM is reading, and idle starts hunting. 3 things drift over 100,000 miles. First, the MAF picks up a thin film of oil vapor and dust from the intake tract. It's a hot wire sensor, a small platinum wire measuring heat pulled off by incoming air. Coat that wire with a few micrograms of oil residue and it reads low. ECM thinks less air is entering, trims fuel to match. Rough idle. Second, the throttle body plate builds up dark, sticky carbon around the butterfly edge and on the idle air passages behind it. Older engines with a separate idle air control valve, a lot of 2000s-era Toyotas, Hondas, Nissans. That IAC bypass is where deposit accumulates. Newer electronic throttle setups have the ECM working around the deposit for a while and then giving up. Rough idle. Third, one of the small rubber vacuum lines on the intake, PCV hose, brake booster hose, evap purge line, cracks at the elbow where it meets the plastic manifold. Unmetered air enters after the MAF. ECM sees lean and tries to compensate. Rough idle. So for Symptom 1, here's how the standard 15 hack list grades out. MAF sensor cleaning with a proper mass airflow safe spray. The CRC chlorinated formula, or the equivalent from another maker, is a real fix. $18 for the can. Disconnect the battery, pull the sensor out of the intake tract, spray the wire element from 10 inches away without touching it. Air dry 20 minutes, put it back. If the sensor was contaminated, you'll feel the change on the drive home. If it wasn't, you've spent $18 to rule it out. Real fix. Green light. Air filter replacement. Yes, real fix, but only if the filter is actually restricted. Most modern paper filters take a lot to genuinely restrict flow. If you've got 40,000 miles on it and you drive in dusty conditions, replace it. If you've got 10,000 miles on it and you drive on paved roads, leave it alone. $12 to $20 either way. Don't over-replace. The source list treats this like a monthly project. It isn't. Throttle body cleaning. Real fix. $12 for a can of throttle body specific cleaner, 20 minutes with a shop rag and a small brush. Do not use MAF cleaner on the throttle body. The residue profile is different. Do not use carburetor cleaner on newer throttle bodies with the polymer coating on the plate. You can etch that coating and make the ECM's idle learn permanently unhappy. Use the product that says throttle body cleaner on the label. Restart. Let it relearn idle for a few minutes, and it's done. PCV valve check. The source list has it right for the wrong reason. The PCV is a small one-way check valve that lets crankcase blow-by gases back into the intake in a controlled, metered way. Stuck open, you have a huge vacuum leak and idle goes to hell. Stuck closed, you build crankcase pressure and start pushing oil past seals. Either way, you feel it at idle. The check is 30 seconds. Pull the valve, shake it, listen for the rattle. No rattle, replace. $6 to $9. Real fix. But the source list frames this as a maintenance schedule item to be replaced every so many miles. It's not. It's a check and replace if failed item, not a scheduled swap. Vacuum hose inspection. I'd promote this from where it sits on the standard list. Most compilation videos put it dead last as an afterthought. On any car past 120,000 miles, cracked vacuum hoses at the elbow joints are one of the top 3 sources of rough idle. A can of unlit propane along the intake at idle. If the idle speed changes when the propane crosses a spot, that's your leak. You don't need a smoke machine for this. You need a can of propane in 10 minutes. Okay, section 1 done. Camry note. Julie's throttle body was black, not sticky-tacky, not gummy. I mean actually black around the plate edge. And when I pulled the MAF, the platinum element had a visible film. 20 minutes of work and about $30 in cleaner did most of what she needed. I'll come back to what happened. Symptom 2. The car feels heavy. It accelerates like there's a parachute on it, especially on hills and merging onto the freeway. This is the run-like-new symptom the compilation videos are targeting hardest. It's also where most of the hacks on those lists don't do very much, unless you happen to have the specific problem they address. Under load, foot in the throttle, engine pulling, the air-fuel corridor widens. Idle mixture problems disappear. What matters is that the engine can move as much air as the driver's asking for, ignite it cleanly, and get useful work out of the burn. 3 legs, any one compromised, and the car feels heavy. Air is bottlenecked by filter, MAF, and throttle plate travel. Filter and MAF I covered. Throttle plate travel on a modern electronic throttle car is almost never mechanical restriction. It's the ECM commanding less opening than the pedal's asking for, usually because of a stored fault code that pushed the engine into a mild limp mode. Ignition is bottlenecked by plugs and coils. This is where the schedule advice on the standard list is close but not tight enough. Spark plugs. Modern iridium plugs are rated at 100,000 miles. NGK laser iridium. Denso iridium TT. Copper plugs at 30,000. Platinum plugs. Stock on a lot of 2005 to 2015 vehicles. 60 to 100,000, depending on application. The mistake I see is either never replacing plugs because the car made it to 100,000 and still runs, or replacing plugs at 30,000 off a forum post from a Chevy 350 mechanic running copper. Match the plug type to manufacturer spec for your specific engine. On the Camry 2ARFE, iridium, and roughly 100,000. On the Silverado 4.3 Ecotec 3, my truck, same. The 100,000-mile number is a spec, not a guarantee. Pull one at 70,000 and look at the electrode. Tip rounded, gap grown noticeably from spec. Replace. Looks like new, put it back. Ignition coils. The source list treats these as scheduled replacement. They aren't. Coils fail on their own timeline, usually one at a time. And when they do, they trigger a P0301 through P0308 misfire code on the specific cylinder. Replacing all 4 or 6 at 100,000 miles is throwing $200 to $600 at a problem you don't have yet. Wait until one fails. Replace that one. Fuel injector cleaner. Real, but overstated. A good detergent additive. Techron Complete Fuel System Cleaner. Retail. BG44K, stronger through a shop. Will scrub deposits off port injectors over a tank or 2. If your car has port injection, this helps. Direct injection. GM Ecotec LTG, Ford EcoBoost, VWEA 888, most current German engines and a growing share of Japanese ones. An in-tank additive won't touch intake valve deposits because fuel never washes over the valves. For direct injection hesitation under load, it's a walnut shell blast at a shop, or CRCG-DIIVD delivered through the intake with the engine running at controlled RPM. $150 to $200 at a shop. Intake and combustion decarbon. Grade carefully. Direct injection engine, 80,000 plus miles. Hesitation plus rough cold start plus cylinder-specific misfire codes. Yes, decarbon the intake. Port injection engine, same complaint. Decarbon isn't going to help because you don't have the same deposit mechanism. Where compilation videos lump every engine into the same generic recommendation is where they waste people's money. Mechanism matters. Symptom 3. Fuel economy has crept down over the last few months. Same driving, same commute, same season, but the tank goes shorter than it used to. The source list mishandles this. None of the 15 hacks aim directly at MPG loss. You get generic clean the MAF and change the air filter, both real but weak, and the octane myth, which gets its own section. 3 things actually drop fuel economy on a car in its second decade, in order of impact I see. Number 1. An aging upstream oxygen sensor. The upstream O2 on bank 1, pre-catalyst, closest to the exhaust manifold, is what the ECM uses to trim fuel in closed-loop feedback. Every fraction of a second, the sensor tells the ECM whether the mixture just burned was rich, lean, or right. Over time, the sensor's response gets slow. The ECM averages over a wider window, mixture consistently richer than it needs to be, because rich is the safe side to average toward. MPG bleeds a mile at a time. Bosch and Denso are the 2 Tier 1 suppliers making most of the O2 sensors on the road. Upstream wideband sensors run $220 to $320 for the part. Downstream narrowband sensors, which monitor catalyst efficiency and don't directly affect fuel trim, run $85 to $130. The item you replace for MPG loss is the upstream. The item that triggers a PO420 is the downstream, and replacing that one doesn't recover MPG. The source list doesn't have O2 sensors on it. Real omission. The best MPG recovery job on my counter for cars past 120,000 miles isn't on any of these compilation videos. Number 2. Spark plug wear at end of service life, not misfire level. Subtle wear where the gap has crept from 43 thousandths to 55 on a spec that called for 43. Ignition still fires. Burn is slightly less complete. MPG drops a mile or a mile and a half per gallon. Real fix. Number 3. MAF drift. Same mechanism as symptom 1. A partially contaminated MAF that hasn't crossed the fault code threshold will still cause a 2 or 3% fuel trim error at the pump. Cleaning is the fix. The premium fuel restores power pitch. Its own section because the source list gets the framing partly right, but for the wrong reason. Symptom 4. Hard cold starts. Long cranking. Rough for the first 30 seconds after cold start, then smooths out. This is where the source list is mostly wrong. Compilation videos love to recommend PCV, plug replacement, and a throttle body clean for hard cold starts. Sometimes that's the fix. More often, it isn't. Long cranking on a fuel-injected engine that later runs fine is usually one of 2 things, either a leaking injector or a leaking check valve in the fuel pump assembly is bleeding rail pressure down overnight. First startup takes longer because the pump has to build pressure from 0 before injectors atomize properly. Or the battery's drifted low enough that cranking speed is slow, but the alternator recovers once the engine's running. Battery check is a 5-minute job with a $30 multimeter. 12.6 volts key off is healthy. Below 12.4, the battery's on its way out, even if it's still turning the engine over. Load test at a parts store. Most chains do it free. Rail pressure bleed down is diagnosed with a fuel pressure gauge at the Schrader valve on the rail, if your engine still has one. Many newer direct injection engines don't. On those, the diagnostic path is a scan tool, watching commanded versus actual rail pressure at startup. Where the source list does earn its keep on cold starts is throttle body and PCV cleanup, but only if the rough idle after startup is the actual symptom, not the crank time. If the engine cranks fine and idles rough for 30 seconds before smoothing out, yes, MAF and throttle body work will help, but that's overlapping with symptom 1, not a separate item. My own truck, because it's directly relevant. 2016 Silverado 1500, 4.3 V6 Ecotec 3, 108,000 miles. Late last spring, I noticed a slightly rougher cold start than the year before. No misfire, no check engine light, just a longer half-second of unsteadiness before idle stabilized. I ran through the source list order on my own weekends to see which item actually did it. Weekend 1, replace the PCV, $9, no change. Weekend 2, clean the throttle body, $12, no change. Weekend 3, pulled the plugs. Nothing dramatic on the electrodes, but the gap had crept and the truck was just past the 108,000-mile mark on a manufacturer spec of 100,000. 6 NGK laser iridium plugs came to $66. 20 minutes to swap. Cold starts snap back. Lesson: the hack the list said would fix cold starts, throttle body, and PCV, prominent items on those lists, wasn't the hack that fixed it. PCV was fine. Throttle body was fine. It was the item buried at position 5 or 6 on most of these videos, because replace the plugs on the manufacturer schedule doesn't make a good thumbnail. Symptom 5. Check engine light with a lean code. P0171 on bank 1, P0174 on bank 2, or both together. This is the symptom where the source list has its single best insight and also gets it half hidden. The good insight is the gas cap. The item they bury at position 11 or 12 is one of the highest return fixes in home car care, and it's routinely on the paper at a dealership visit for a $150 diagnostic that ends with a $12 cap. A lean code means long-term fuel trim on bank 1 is stuck above plus 15 or plus 20%. Something is adding air to the intake without going through the MAF or subtracting fuel the MAF thinks it's delivering. Order I'd check them. Cracked or loose gas cap seal triggers evap codes more often than lean codes, but the two chain. An $8 to $12 cap clears a lot of vague check engine lights that shops charge to diagnose. Federal OBD2 has monitored evap integrity since 1996 in the U.S. and 2001 worldwide, with 20 thousandths inch gross leak and 40 thousandths inch small leak thresholds. Most gas cap seal failures cross the small leak threshold. Vacuum hose crack at an elbow. Same story as symptom 1. Propane at idle. Listen for idle change. 10 minutes. MAF contamination. The MAF reads low. ECM commands less fuel. Exhaust O2 sees lean. Trim maxes out. Clean the MAF. $18. Intake manifold gasket. Plastic manifolds on some V6s from the 2000s crack at the runners with thermal cycling. Smoke test at a shop, $80 to $120. Small evap leak beyond the cap. Purge valve solenoid, canister vent hose, filler neck. Scan tool with evap monitor readiness, plus a shop smoke test. The hack the source list actually gets right here is the gas cap. It's their 11th or 12th item, and it should be their second. 6 months of lean or evap codes going away for $8 is one of the best returns on investment in home car care. Do that one before you spend on anything else in this category. Symptom 6. Oil consumption. Blue smoke on startup, on deceleration, or under hard acceleration. This is the symptom where the source list crosses from marginal advice into actively harmful advice. And I want to be direct about it, because if you follow the list here, you're spending money on a product that will make the underlying problem worse. Blue smoke is oil burning in the combustion chamber. Two mechanisms. Valve stem seals. Small rubber seals at the top of each valve stem, where the stem passes through the head. When they wear, oil from the top of the head drips down the stems and gets pulled into the combustion chamber on the intake stroke. Classic symptom. Blue puff on cold startup that clears in 10 to 15 seconds. Also a puff on deceleration when manifold vacuum spikes. Real fix is valve stem seal replacement. Costs vary by engine. $400 with the head on the block, using the compressed air through the plug hole trick. Up to $1,500 if the timing chain has to come off. A genuine fix that solves the underlying problem. Piston rings. 3 per piston. 2 compression rings and 1 oil control ring. When the oil control ring gets stuck in its groove or worn past spec, oil crosses into the combustion chamber every stroke. Symptom: smoke under load and steady consumption between changes, a quart or two every 1,000 miles. Real fix is a top-end solvent soak, which sometimes unsticks the rings on engines just neglected on oil changes, or a rebuild. The source list recommends chemical sealants for micro leaks. I don't buy the framing. Chemical sealants, the stop leak in rear main, and high-mileage additive products at the parts store work by depositing a polymer film on the inside of leak paths. 2 problems. If the leak is at a gasket surface, valve cover, oil pan, timing cover, the actual seal is the compression of a rubber gasket against a metal flange. A chemical film on the fluid side isn't fixing that compression. It might slow a visible drip. It's not fixing the underlying gasket. Second, the polymer film goes everywhere the oil goes. Small oil passages in the head, the oil pump pickup screen, the piston ring lands. You're trading a slow visible leak for a slow invisible restriction in oil delivery to parts that need clean flow. And it builds up over time. Do the actual repair math before you buy that $8 bottle. A valve cover gasket on a Camry 2 ARFE is a $150 part and labor job at an independent shop. Less if you do it yourself with a $5 gasket and an hour. A rear main seal is $600 to $900 because the transmission has to come out. A slow rear main drip that doesn't cost you a quart between oil changes isn't necessarily worth fixing at all. Identify the source, price the real repair, do it, or accept the drip and top off. The sealant is neither diagnosis nor fix. It's a Band-Aid that costs you invisible wear. The octane myth. Higher octane, 91, 93, is not more powerful. It's more resistant to premature ignition under compression. If your engine's designed for 87 regular, running 93 buys you nothing. Not power, not MPG, not longer life. The higher octane fuel doesn't ignite until the spark plug fires it, and your engine wasn't going to have ignition timing trouble on 87 because it was engineered around 87. Extra octane sits there, unused. What matters for longevity is the detergent additive package, and that's where Top Tier comes in. Top Tier is a voluntary retailer certification, not a government requirement. Retailers that meet the standard commit to higher detergent concentrations than the EPA minimum across all grades. Chevron, Shell, Costco, Exxon, most of the major brand stations. The directory is at toptiergas.com. AAA published a fuel quality study in 2016 that tested Top Tier against non-Top Tier over 4,000 miles of controlled driving. The difference in intake valve carbon accumulation was significant. Many times more deposit on the non-Top Tier engines, running the same load. Controlled measurement, peer-reviewed methodology. The piece most compilation videos miss when they either recommend premium blindly or dismiss octane entirely. Practical takeaway: buy 87 if your car's spec'd for 87. Buy 91 if it's spec'd for 91. Do buy top tier when you can. 30 to 50 cents a gallon over off-brand earns its keep on carbon. Skip the premium restores power pitch. 3 items the source list misses. 15 hacks on the compilation list, and the biggest MPG recovery item on my counter, an aging upstream O2 sensor, isn't on it. Neither is transmission fluid. Neither is tire pressure. Upstream O2 sensor, mechanism in Symptom 3. If your car's past 120,000 miles and MPG has crept down without any other symptom, this is one of the top 3 candidates. Match the sensor to manufacturer spec. Connectors and heater circuit calibration vary between vehicles, and wrong connector fitment is a common frustration. Bosch or Denso OE equivalent is the safe path. Don't buy the $20 generic. It'll trigger a stored code within a week or two. Transmission fluid. ATF degrades on a heat and time curve, not a mileage curve. If the fluid's never been changed at 100,000 miles, a proper exchange, not a pressure flush, an exchange with manufacturer spec fluid shifts the transmission like new. ATF +4 for Chrysler. Toyota WS for most modern Toyotas. Dexron 6 for most GM. Do not mix specs, and do not flush a transmission that's already showing shift complaints. That can accelerate failure by dislodging deposits doing partial sealing work in worn clutch packs. Tires and rolling resistance. A car with front tires at 25 pounds per square inch against a spec of 33 pounds per square inch is measurably slower off the line and less fuel efficient. Check pressure cold, first thing in the morning, once a month. Free. Most of what people diagnose as loss of power on a specific stretch of freeway is actually 4 tires that are all 4 to 7 psi low. Julie's Camry. Follow-up. I told her when she picked the car up, the shop's $1,200 induction service quote was aimed at the right symptom cluster, but the actual fix on her specific car was a $30 afternoon. MAF cleaner, throttle body cleaner, an air filter that was actually clogged enough to warrant a new one at $14. 45 minutes of labor plus a walkthrough of what to watch for over the next 30 days. No decarbon, no injector rail cleaning. Her plug wear was fine at $143,000. Toyota's Iridium spec on that engine is $120,000, and she was inside the window on her second set from a dealer service 5 years back. 60 days later, she called back. The rough idle at Coldwater Road was gone. Off-the-line pickup was noticeably better. What was still there, and this is the honest part, was slight sluggishness above 55 on the freeway that hadn't fully recovered. I told her that was worth tracking because on a car past 140,000, a symptom like that could be either the upstream O2 drifting or the beginning of a coil pack that'll eventually throw a cylinder-specific misfire. Told her to bring it back if it changed. She hasn't yet. I'll pull her back at the 6-month mark either way. Wrap. 6 symptoms, 6 diagnostic paths, roughly 15 hacks graded across them, with 2 items on the standard listicle, chemical sealants for oil leaks, and premium fuel for power that I'd push back on, plus 3 items left off the list that belong on: O2 sensors, transmission fluid, and tires. Match the hack to the symptom, and most of these work. Just do them in order because a video told you to. You're spending a Saturday afternoon plus $50 to $100 in parts on things your engine didn't need. If you have a specific complaint on your own car and want to figure out which of these 6 symptoms it maps to, drop a comment with year, make, model, mileage, and what you're actually feeling: rough idle, sluggish acceleration, MPG loss, hard start, check engine light, oil smoke. I read the comments through the week. If a pattern lines up on multiple cars from the same era or engine family, I'll pull that into a follow-up. The next video I'm putting together is on the O2 sensor specifically. Narrowband versus wideband, upstream versus downstream, how to read the sensor readiness monitor on a scan tool, and the part most compilation videos never touch: how to tell when the code you're chasing is the sensor itself, and when the sensor is telling you something else is wrong. The one hack this list keeps missing, and it deserves its own walkthrough. The Silverado goes back into Bay 2 tomorrow morning for the upstream O2 swap I've been putting off. Julie's Camry is back on the schedule 3 weeks from now for that above 55 sluggishness. See you then.